Hi, so I'm going to look at question 6 from prep test 62 games. So 62 to section 1 games. Okay, question 6. Ooh, yeah, this is a tricky one. Okay, so right away, I know this is a particularly tricky question because they're asking for us to substitute a condition and for it to have the same effect as the old condition. So we're trying to find a new one that's going to have the same effect as the old one. And when it says the same effect, that means that if we put the new condition in place of the old one, then it wouldn't be more restrictive and it wouldn't be less restrictive. So first I'm going to just show the setup for this game, but then I'll go through how to like solve this type of question because it is a more challenging question type. It's probably the toughest question type for games, actually. So, I mean, the difficulty of the question will change based on the difficulty of the game. But this specific type is, like, as far as types of questions go, is going to be the toughest. So, okay, so we've got our players are G, L, P, S, T, and W. So we only have 6, which is good. And it's just 1 per day. So we have a 1-to-1 ratio of players to positions, which is nice. That's helpful. That's going to limit our options. Water has to be earlier than landscaping. Power has to be earlier than gas. And it also has to be earlier than satellite. Okay. And the appointment schedule for the 2nd and 3rd days can't be gas, satellite, or telephone. Okay, so we can't have gas, satellite, or telephone here. So 3 out of our 6 options are gone. And the telephone can't be scheduled for the 6th day. Okay, so I'm gonna have to like draw this on. That's going to be better. So for 2 and 3, we have a particular rule about that. And then for 6, we have a rule about that. So our rule for 2 and 3 is that we don't have P, or sorry, we don't have gas, we don't have satellite, and we don't have phone. And then move these guys down so we can actually see. This rule here, and then this one is no telephone. So the telephone seems to be pretty restricted, right? It only has 3 options. It can be 1st, 4th, or 5th. So that's relevant. What else do we have here? I guess the gas and satellite are pretty limited as well, right? Because they have to have P in front of them. So they can't be 2nd or 3rd, but they actually can't be 1st either. So that's kind of interesting. What else? What else? Yeah, W and L are not very limited, but because the other ones are so limited, we're probably going to need to use W and L in, these spots that are so restricted. So like number 6 would be G, S, or L, right? It can't be T or W or P because those guys have to have somebody after them. And the first spot could be W, P, or T. So we have quite a few spots that there are only 3 players that could potentially go there out of the 6. Okay, so a couple things that we could do with this one. We could try to look at all the possible scenarios. So T is first, for example, then yeah, it can't be last, but it can never be last. So this is G, S, or L. Ooh, yeah, that's not very helpful. And then we could have WL here, or we could have P in one of those spots. Yeah, we don't have any like or rules. So creating all of the possible solutions doesn't actually make a lot of sense, right? So what do we have for creating all the possible solutions? Sequencing is a good sign. 6 players is okay. We have a 1-to-1 ratio of players to positions. So that definitely is a good sign. But what we're missing is the OR rules. We don't have any of those. So yeah, that's actually not going to work, right? We don't want to be doing that. Okay, so back to this question. All right, so you should have a bit of a bank of acceptable solutions up until that point because you've gone through the other questions. And so I'm going to actually go through those questions just to show you how you should be going through these so that you can set yourself up to do question 6 a little bit faster. So which one of the following is acceptable? So I would go rule by rule to eliminate the wrong answers for this one. So T can't be 6th. All right. So B is out. We can't have G, S, or T in either the first 2, or sorry, the second 2. G, S, okay, so here we have T, so that's not allowed. We have to have W before L. And, oh, we can eliminate this one. And we have to have P before G and S. So A we can eliminate. So D should be correct. So we'll just double check that as we go. So I'm going to write it out in that format so that I can keep it for my little bank of acceptable solutions. Okay. And that's just what that like BOAS thing stands for, is bank of acceptable solutions. Okay, so what do we got? T is first, that's fine. W, fine. P, okay. Then L, yep, that's fine. And G and S at the end. Okay, great. Moving on to the next question. So we've got one acceptable solution. And we can move on now. If neither the gas nor the satellite nor the telephone is scheduled for the 4th day, which of the following must be true? Okay, so with this one, not only are these guys not allowed to be in day 2 or 3, they're not allowed to be a day 4 either. So all of those days are not allowed for GS and T, which means those days have to be W, L, and P in some order, right? So we could put W, then L, then P, or we could have W, L, or we could have P, W, L. So those are options there. I know W has to be before L, so I'm just kind of moving P through them, right? So P is after the 2 of them, between the 2 of them, in front of the 2 of them. All right, now what I'm left with are the places where I'm allowed to have G, S, and T. T can't be 6th, but T can't be 5th either because G and S have to be after P. So G and S are going to have to be on the end here either S first or G first out of the two of them, right? So we could have G then S, or we could have TWL, PS, right, for each of them. So we can switch S and G back and forth. So I'll just show that by having them side like this. And we've got T and T in front. Okay, so we've got a bunch more acceptable solutions now, right? We actually already had one of them. So if you look here, this one would be one side of this. So we could just add the SG version and we'd have that one as well. And for some reason on this one, I did spaces in between, but I didn't do that up there. Anyways, okay, so more acceptable solutions, great. Okay, 1, 2, 5. Okay, so we're really adding up that bank. Which one of the following must be true? Does gas have to be the 5th day? Nope. It could be satellite. And actually, gas and satellite are logically equivalent players to each other. Okay. Right, and that's actually going to come in handy when we deal with substitution questions. Okay, and when I say gas and satellite are logically equivalent players, what I mean is that the rules for gas are exactly the same as the rules for satellite. So yes, one of them is satellite, one of them is gas, you know, one's S, one's G, but as far as like the actual logic is concerned, whatever can happen to gas also could happen in another world to satellite. We can just switch them back and forth, and we're not going to break any rules, unless, of course, we get specific new information about one of them that doesn't apply to the other one in a question-specific condition. But as long as the original rules apply and any new rules apply equally to both of them, they are logically equivalent players. And if something can be true of satellite, it could also be true of gas. So we can't say it must be true that gas is scheduled for the 5th day, because if it's true for gas, it could also be true for satellite. So satellite could be scheduled for the 5th day instead. Same with C. Satellite being scheduled for the 6th day doesn't have to be true, because gas could be there instead, and that would be just fine. Okay. So this is going like a bit deeper, but this is actually a really helpful thing to start to notice. Okay. Must it be true that telephone is scheduled for the 1st day? Yes, that does have to be true. So that is the correct answer. Power for the 3rd day. No, power could be 2nd, 3rd, or 4th with these solutions here. Okay. And water for the 2nd day. Water could be 2nd or 3rd. For this particular question. 3, which one of the following must be true? Okay, so does landscaping have to be earlier than telephone? No, telephone could be first, right? Power before landscaping? Nope, we could have landscaping before power, no problem with that. Telephone earlier than gas. So we haven't seen an example where telephone is earlier than gas, but maybe it's possible. Or sorry, we haven't seen one where telephone is later than gas, right? So all of the solutions we have so far say that telephone is earlier, but maybe we could make it later, right? So telephone can't be last, but it could be 2nd last. So we could have telephone, then gas, right? We'd have to put S there because it can't be 2nd or 3rd, and it can't be 1st because we have to have P before it, right? And then these remaining spots here, we have W and L in some order, and we have P in there somewhere. So we have PWL, we have WPL, we could have WLP. Okay, so more for our bank of acceptable solutions, right? And we've eliminated C as an option because telephone doesn't have to be, sorry, it doesn't have to be earlier than gas. It could be later than gas because gas and satellite could switch places here. Sorry, so gas and satellite, these guys here can, yeah, they can always switch places. So yeah, that's a whole bunch of solutions there, actually. We can kind of double the number of solutions that we're seeing there because for each of these, gas and satellite can switch places. So that shows that, yeah, that telephone could be later than gas. So gas would be fourth, and telephone would be fifth. The telephone appointment is scheduled for an earlier day than the water appointment. Yeah, we can have that because telephone can be first. And water is earlier than gas. That does have to be true. So water has to be before landscaping. And if we look at gas and satellite, those guys, their only options are to be 4, 5, or 6, right? So there are 2 of them that are going to fill 2 of these 3 positions at the end. So there's only going to be 1 position left over at the end here. We can't put water in there so that it would be like later than gas. That wouldn't be allowed because water has to be before landscaping. So that's why E has to be true. Which one of the following cannot be the appointments scheduled for the 4th, 5th, and 6th days listed in that order? Okay, so we have to have satellite and gas be in this group of days. And so E is the correct answer because it doesn't include satellite. The rest of them are all okay, right? So landscaping is okay to be included. It just has to be after water. Same here. Power just has to be before gas and satellite, which it is here. And telephone, as long as it's not last, we're okay for 4, 5, 6. Like it could be 4 or 5, and that's okay. E is the one that's not allowed. So you might notice that sometimes like it seems like we're spending a ton of time on one question and then hardly any time on the next one. And I do find that that happens sometimes with games. Like if you go deeply into it and try to really understand one of the earlier questions, then often what you learn from that experience, you can just transfer to the next one, right? So I've been learning that S and G, they have to be in the last 3 spots, right? They both have to be there. And so knowing that allows me to answer this question really quickly by just looking for, do I have gas and satellite? Yes, yes. And then E, I don't. That's not possible. That's my answer. Okay, so if neither of them is scheduled for the 6th day, then that means that they have to be, like S and G have to be 4 and 5. And it also means that that 6th day has to be L because it cannot be T. T can't be 6th. And it can't be W because W has to be before L. And it can't be P because P has to be before G and S. So the only option left for the 6th spot is landscaping. Once again, because I've kind of done the mental work and learned the lessons along the way, this one actually goes a bit faster for me. All right, now question 6, the toughest question and often the most time consuming question type. Like you're really only going to encounter one substitution question per section of games. There is only one game section I've ever seen where they have 2 substitution questions. So it's really rare that you would have more than one. It's very likely that you will have one though. So it's really unlikely that they just wouldn't include a substitution question. Okay, so we're looking at the one about t, okay, about t not being able to be sixth. So we also know that t can't be second or third. So just like with our question specific conditions, we are really interested in the like player or position that is mentioned in this rule that we're trying to substitute. So we're interested in other things about the telephone appointment, and we're interested in other things about the sixth day, right? So the sixth day has to be either G, S, or L. We already know that. That would also have the effect of saying that the telephone appointment can't be there, right? So if we had a rule that said the sixth day has to be either gas, satellite, or landscaping, that would be a potential correct answer to this question. That isn't actually on here, right? But knowing that that's the case actually does help me, because here they're saying either the gas or satellite appointment has to be for the sixth day. Well, that doesn't actually have to be true, right? We could have landscaping on the sixth day, that would be allowed. And this original rule didn't prevent landscaping from being sixth. So this one would actually be one that we could eliminate because it doesn't have to be true based on the original rule. This one would be more restrictive than the original rule. So that's the first way of eliminating the incorrect answers here, is by asking, does it have to be true? And so this is just under the original rule. We don't even actually have to think about some imaginary other rule. We could just ask ourselves, well, does this actually have to be true? Just based on the original rule. Because if it doesn't have to be true under the original, that means that this one is like adding more like rules. It's adding an extra rule, right? And it's limiting us further than we should have been limited. Okay, so first we can treat it like a must be true question and eliminate anything that could be false. Okay. Second thing that we would do is we would look for things that are less restrictive than the original. Okay, so eliminate less restrictive. This one we're eliminating anything that's more restrictive than the original by asking, must be true. Oh boy, really making the typos today. Okay, so to eliminate anything less restrictive, you're going to ask, would this rule allow something the original didn't? If yes, eliminate it. Okay, so we want to look for something that has the same effect. We don't want to look for something that would allow a different order from what the original would have allowed. Okay, so let's first start with looking at the rest of them and asking if they must be true. So the telephone appointment must be scheduled for an earlier day than the gas appointment or the satellite appointment or both. That does have to be true, right? So telephone has to be earlier than at least one of them. But it could also be earlier than both of them. Okay. So that does have to be true. So we can't eliminate it based on it being more restrictive. B, the telephone appointment must be scheduled for the day immediately before either the gas appointment or the satellite appointment. So here's where we use our bank of acceptable solutions and we say, no, that doesn't have to be true, because we have a bunch of examples where we don't have telephone immediately before gas or satellite, right? We have telephone immediately before water or telephone immediately before power. So yeah, those ones prove that B could be false. C, the telephone appointment must be scheduled for an earlier date than the landscaping appointment. And again, we can go back to our bank of acceptable solutions and we can say, no, that does not have to be true. So we could have telephone after landscaping. So we can eliminate C. And D, if the telephone appointment is not scheduled for the first day, okay, so if it's not for the first day, then we're kind of dealing with like something sort of like this scenario. Then it must be scheduled for the day immediately before the gas appointment. And we know that doesn't have to be true because we could switch gas and satellite because they're logically equivalent. So telephone could be the day immediately before gas, or it could be the day immediately before satellite. So this doesn't have to be true. Yeah. All right, so that means A is the correct answer. And we actually eliminated all of the wrong answers just by asking which one of the following must be true. You're not always going to be able to do that. So sometimes you are going to have to figure out how to eliminate things because they're not restrictive enough, because they're less restrictive than the original. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. This was definitely a much more like in-depth kind of heavy sort of like dive into games and into some other layers that we haven't really explored quite yet. So yeah, if it feels a bit overwhelming, like don't worry about it, you know, don't stress about that. Also, it is in like a video or kind of audio form. So if you do want to, rewatch it, or there are specific parts that you would like me to explain in more depth, or using like a different example or something, then just let me know. Okay. Yeah, so if you have any other questions, let me know, and hopefully we'll be able to actually meet properly at some point. Here. I am having some treatments next week that will hopefully give me some relief, and then I'll be able to actually like meet face to face and like at least face to face over Zoom, but kind of have that more normal scheduling again. Okay, have a good one. Bye.